why you can't focus, and how to fix it forever. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you felt truly present, not lost in thoughts, not overwhelmed by responsibilities, not exhausted by life, but genuinely alive inside your own mind? Most people cannot remember. Somewhere along the way, life turned into noise. The mind turned into a room filled with unopened boxes. Goals turned into reminders you keep snoozing. Dreams turned into something you plan for someday. And the heart turned into something quietly tired. But here is the truth you almost never hear. You are not lazy, you are not broken, and you are not falling behind. You are simply unfocused. You are living in a world designed to steal your attention, one notification, one distraction, one tiny moment at a time. The problem is not you. The problem is the world around you. And today, right here, you are going to take your mind back. This is not a motivational talk. This is a reconstruction, a rebuilding of the system that decides your actions, your discipline, and the path you take in life. As you listen, take a slow breath, because the next few minutes will give you a sentence that might stay with you for a lifetime. Your future depends on the things you choose to focus on today. Let me tell you a story. There was a man named Daniel, a smart man with dreams so big they could barely fit inside one lifetime. But every morning he woke up with plans, and every night he went to bed with the same plans untouched. He wasn't lazy, he wasn't careless, he wasn't unmotivated, he was simply drowning in distractions. His mind jumped from one thought to another like a restless bird. He felt busy every hour, yet accomplished nothing by the end of the day. One day Daniel went to visit an old professor, someone known as the man who fixes minds. The professor asked him a simple question. "What is your mind full of right now?" Daniel sighed and said, "Everything." The professor smiled, poured tea into a cup, and kept pouring until the tea began overflowing. Shocked, Daniel said, "Stop, it's overflowing." The professor looked into his eyes and whispered, "And so are you." In that moment, Daniel understood. His mind was the cup, overflowing, overloaded, overstimulated. He didn't need more motivation. He needed less noise. He needed space inside his mind. Maybe you feel that way too, full of worries, full of regrets, full of tasks, full of unfinished dreams, full of everything except the clarity you need to move forward. And that's where we begin, because today in this 7-part journey, we will rebuild your focus from the ground up. Not with cliches and not with hype, but with real psychology, the science of attention, the mechanics of distraction, and the architecture of a sharp, disciplined mind. Here is the first truth you must accept. Your brain was not designed for modern life. Millions of years ago, your ancestors focused on one threat, one goal, one environment. Their attention system was built for survival, not for navigating hundreds of choices in a digital world. Today you face more distractions in a single morning than they faced in their entire lifetime. Your brain is not weak, the world is too loud, and here is something even deeper. Your focus didn't disappear. It was taken from you, stolen, hijacked, bit by bit. Every ping, every swipe, every glowing screen took a small piece of your attention until one day you couldn't concentrate long enough to finish a simple task. But the moment you stop blaming yourself and start understanding the psychology behind it, something powerful happens. You begin rebuilding yourself. So here's your first tool, simple but transformative: the 3-second pause. Every time your mind jumps, take one breath, pause for 3 seconds, and ask, is this what I want to focus on right now? This single question can save hours of wasted time. Because focus is not natural. Focus is a repeated decision, a decision that becomes identity. Now ask yourself quietly, if you fix your focus, how different could your life be 6 months from now? What habits would you build? What dreams would you finally take seriously? Who could you become if your attention became your strength instead of your weakness? The answer you feel right now is the beginning of your transformation. Because today, not next week, not next month, but today is the day you stop living distracted and start living deliberately. This is the day your life begins again. Before you rebuild your focus, you must understand the enemy standing against it. Not an external enemy, not a person, not a system, not society, but something inside you. A silent force that shapes every decision you make. Psychologists call it cognitive drift. You might call it something else. Losing yourself without realizing it. It happens slowly, quietly, like a boat that moves off the shore 1 inch at a time until suddenly the land is no longer visible. That's how distraction steals your life. Bit by bit, moment by moment, without resistance, because the brain never learned how to protect itself from modern chaos. Let me tell you a story to help you see this clearly. There was a woman named Eleanor. She was disciplined once, organized, focused, always ahead of her responsibilities. But over time, without any major crisis, she became someone she didn't recognize. She woke up tired, went to bed scrolling on her phone, lost interest in her hobbies, forgot important plans, and felt guilty for reasons she couldn't explain. Her mind was like a room where the lights were always flickering. One evening, after a long day of feeling mentally exhausted, Elena sat alone in her living room. She noticed how quiet the room was, yet how loud her thoughts were. The silence made the truth clearer than ever. She wasn't living her life. She was reacting to it. Every day felt like a response to something, a message, a demand, a problem, a distraction. She wasn't choosing her focus. The world was choosing it for her. This realization scared her, but it also set her free, because awareness is the first step to reclaiming power. Elena decided to study her mind like a scientist studying a new world. She paid attention to every moment she felt pulled away from herself. And what she discovered is something most people never notice. Distraction doesn't start the moment you pick up your phone or open a notification. It starts much earlier. It starts with an emotion, boredom, stress, fear, uncertainty, loneliness, overthinking. Each of these emotions creates a crack inside the mind. And distraction enters through that crack like water slips into a broken wall. You don't scroll your phone because you're weak. You scroll your phone because your mind is trying to escape discomfort. Distraction is not a habit, it's a coping mechanism. When Eleanor discovered this, everything changed. She realized she didn't have a discipline problem. She had an emotional awareness problem. The moment she felt uncertain, she looked for comfort. The moment she felt overwhelmed, she looked for escape. The moment she felt lonely, she looked for noise. And the modern world is full of noise, ready to comfort a tired mind. This is why people lose focus, not because they are lazy, but because they are hurting. This is the deep truth psychologists keep repeating. Focus is not about controlling your attention. It's about understanding what pulls your attention away. Most people try to force themselves to concentrate, but they never take a moment to ask, why am I trying to escape this moment? Your mind does not run away without reason. Every drift, every distraction, every sudden urge to check something has a root. And when you find the root, you take back control. There is a simple exercise that can help you see these roots in your own life. For the next day or two, observe the moments when you feel pulled away from your work or responsibilities. Notice what emotion appears right before you get distracted. You might find that you check your phone not because you want to, but because you feel overwhelmed. You open social media not because it's enjoyable, but because it gives your mind a break from deeper, heavier thoughts. The world thinks distraction is about technology, but the truth is, distraction is about emotional pressure you haven't learned to release. This brings us to another important truth. The brain seeks relief faster than it seeks growth. Growth is long-term. Relief is instant, and your mind is designed for survival, not achievement. When your brain senses discomfort, it wants the quickest escape. But every escape costs you something: your time, your energy, your dreams, your discipline, your identity. Elena realized something else too. Every time she gave in to distraction, she wasn't just losing a moment, she was training her brain to avoid effort. The mind learns quickly. If checking your phone gives relief, the brain remembers it. And next time, it will push you to do it again. That's how habits form. Not through intention, but through repetition of relief. Your mind becomes what you reward. If you reward distraction with relief, the mind chooses distraction again and again. The good news is this: the brain can be retrained. Just like distraction is learned, focus can be learned. But it starts with emotional honesty, the courage to sit with uncomfortable emotions instead of running from them. The courage to ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? And why am I avoiding this moment? When you sit with your emotions, they lose their power. When you run from them, they control you. There is one more element to understand before we move forward: mental fatigue. Focus requires energy. Emotional pain drains energy. And when your energy is low, distraction becomes easier. People think they lose focus because they are weak, but most of the time they lose focus because they are tired. Tired minds don't choose discipline. They choose comfort. That is why rest is not a luxury. It is part of the psychology of attention. So let me leave you with a thought that might shift your entire perspective. Distraction is not the disease, it is the symptom. And the moment you stop blaming yourself and start understanding your inner patterns, you begin to rebuild the architecture of a focused, powerful mind. What happened to Eleanor is happening to millions of people around the world. Maybe to you, maybe more than you realize. But awareness is the first crack of light in a dark room. And now that you see the problem clearly, you are already halfway to solving it. Your mind is capable of extraordinary focus. But first, it needs permission to breathe. It needs space. It needs clarity. And in the next segment, we will begin the real rebuilding. The step-by-step psychological framework that turns a drifting mind into a directed one. Before you rebuild your focus, you must understand one of the most powerful laws of the human mind. Your attention goes where your energy flows. Every thought, every action, every decision is shaped by the emotional and mental energy you carry inside you. When your energy is scattered, your focus becomes scattered. When your energy is tired, your focus becomes fragile. And when your energy is controlled, your focus becomes unstoppable. The question is not, how do I force myself to concentrate? The real question is, how do I shape my inner energy so that focus becomes natural? To understand this, let me take you into another story. There was a young man named Rafi. Everyone around him believed he had incredible potential. Teachers, friends, mentors. But no one knew the silent battle inside his mind. Rafi wanted to study, to build skills, to grow, to build a future for himself. But every time he sat down to start something, his mind felt heavy, not noisy, not anxious, just heavy, as if something inside him was slowing him down. He would stare at his notebook, at his desk, at his screen, and suddenly he would feel an invisible wall between him and the work. Minutes passed, then hours, then the day ended with the quiet frustration he carried like a shadow. One evening, Rafi met an older relative, an ex-psychology teacher who had spent decades studying human attention. Rafi asked him, "I don't understand why I cannot focus. I have goals. I have dreams. I have everything to move forward. Then why does my mind stop me?" The old man smiled and replied, "Because your mind isn't resisting the work. It's resisting the weight you carry." Rafi didn't understand at first, but the old man continued, "Your lack of focus isn't caused by your tasks. It's caused by the emotional energy attached to those tasks. Your brain remembers every past failure, every fear, every expectation, and stores it as emotional weight. When you sit to work, it's not the task you're facing, it's the weight of your past." That sentence was like lightning in Rafi's mind, because suddenly he saw the truth. The reason he couldn't focus wasn't because he was incapable, but because the emotional weight inside him was heavy. Every unfinished goal became guilt. Every failed attempt became fear. Every big dream became pressure. And pressure kills focus faster than distraction ever can. This is the part most people never understand. You don't lose focus because you're lazy. You lose focus because the task feels emotionally heavy. The moment your brain feels weight, it looks for escape. That's how procrastination is born. Not from lack of ambition, but from emotional overload. there's a psychological phenomenon called task aversion. It means the brain avoids tasks not because they are difficult, but because they produce discomfort. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of starting, or simply fear of not being good enough. The weight becomes too heavy, so the mind runs away to something easier. Checking your phone, watching a video, opening social media. Each of these is lighter, easier, quicker, more comforting. The brain always picks the option that feels lighter. Rafi learned something important that day. If you want focus, don't fight your tasks. Lighten the emotional weight around them. When your energy is free, your mind becomes free. When your mind is free, your focus becomes sharp. So how do you lighten the weight? It begins with releasing pressure. Most people approach their goals with fear instead of curiosity. They treat tasks like battles instead of opportunities. They see work as a test of worth instead of a path of growth. And when work becomes a test, the mind becomes tense. Tension blocks clarity, and without clarity, there is no focus. The old man taught Rafi a simple technique that changed his life. He said, "Before you start any task, take 10 seconds and tell yourself, I don't need to do this perfectly, I just need to begin." Perfection kills more dreams than failure ever will. When you remove the fear of perfection, the mind relaxes, and a relaxed mind can focus. Another thing he taught was even more powerful. Never rely on motivation. Rely on momentum. Motivation is emotional, momentum is mechanical. Motivation comes and goes, but momentum builds slowly and carries you even on days when your energy is low. The secret to momentum is small beginnings. Not dramatic, not huge, just small. Because the mind resists big tasks but accepts small ones easily. The moment you begin, even for 2 minutes, your brain enters a state called task activation. And once activated, the mind continues naturally. Starting is the battle. Continuing is easier. Rafi started applying this. Instead of planning 3 hours of work, he planned to work for 5 minutes. That small beginning lowered the emotional weight. And once he began, 5 minutes slowly became 10, then 20, then a full hour. Not by force, not by pressure, but because momentum carried him forward. This is the psychology of focus that most people never learn. Your brain does not need you to do more. It needs you to feel less afraid of starting. There is another element too, the environment. The brain associates places with emotions. If your desk is full of clutter, your focus becomes cluttered. If your room feels chaotic, your thoughts become chaotic. Your environment is not separate from your mind. It is an extension of it. When Rafi cleaned his study table, removed unnecessary items, and created a quiet corner just for deep work, he noticed something surprising. His mind felt lighter without doing anything extra. Because external clutter creates internal noise, and then comes the final truth of this segment. Your focus is not something you find. It is something you create by shaping your inner and outer energy. You don't wait to feel focused. You build the conditions that produce focus. You build the momentum that protects focus. You release the emotional weight that blocks focus, and slowly, without forcing, your mind becomes a place where clarity lives naturally. Rafi's transformation didn't happen overnight, but it happened. Day by day, his focus returned, not because he became stronger, but because he became lighter, not because he eliminated distractions, but because he eliminated the emotional pressure inside him. And once the weight lifted, his mind finally breathed again. Maybe you are like Rafi. Maybe your mind is not tired, it is just heavy. Maybe your dreams are not too big, it's just that the emotional weight around them has grown over time. But the moment you lighten that weight, your entire life begins to move again. In the next segment, we will go deeper into the architecture of attention, the invisible system inside your brain that decides what you notice, what you ignore, and how your mind chooses the path it follows. And once you understand that architecture, you will discover the formula for laser sharp focus. Before you can master your focus, you must understand the hidden architecture inside your brain, the system that decides what you pay attention to and what you ignore. Most people believe focus is a choice, a matter of willpower. But neuroscience tells a different story. Focus is not an effort, it is a filter. And the quality of your life depends on how clean or clogged that filter is. Inside your brain, there is a small, powerful network called the reticular activating system, the RAS. It acts like the gatekeeper of your mind. Every second, millions of pieces of information try to enter your awareness. Sounds, memories, worries, ideas, emotions, notifications, noise, signals. But the RAS blocks almost all of it. It only lets in what it believes is important for your survival, your identity, or your goals. In other words, your focus is not random, it is programmed. And the question you must ask is, what is my mind currently programmed to focus on? To understand this deeply, imagine a woman named Maya. She had always been bright, creative, and full of ideas. But after a stressful year, losing her job, moving to a new city, dealing with financial uncertainty, her mind became foggy. She tried reading books but couldn't focus. She tried learning new skills but couldn't follow through. She tried meditation but felt restless. She blamed herself endlessly. Maybe she wasn't disciplined enough. Maybe she wasn't strong enough. But one morning, during a visit to a therapist, she learned something that shook her. Her mind was not failing her. Her RAS was protecting her. When the brain enters stress or survival mode, the RAS stops prioritizing future goals. It begins prioritizing immediate threats, emotional triggers, and negative memories. Not because you choose to, but because your brain believes danger is more important to notice than dreams. This is why a stressed person cannot focus. This is why an anxious person cannot learn. This is why a tired person cannot stay disciplined. The brain is not distracted, it is defending you. Maya realized that her lack of focus was not a flaw but a response, a natural response to overwhelming mental pressure. And this is the same truth for millions around the world who blame themselves for not being able to concentrate. The problem is not your willpower. The problem is the programming of your attention system. Once Maya understood this, she started doing something powerful, something simple but transformative. She began teaching her auras what to focus on, not by force, not by long tasks, but by small repeated signals. Every morning she wrote down her single most important goal for the day. Not 10 tasks, just one. Then she repeated it aloud for 10 seconds. The Aras listened. Because the Aras listens to repetition. It listens to emotion. It listens to clarity. Within a week, she noticed something strange. Her brain began filtering out unnecessary noise. The urge to check her phone reduced. The chaos in her mind began settling like dust in sunlight. The RAS wasn't working against her anymore. It was working for her because she had given it direction. Here lies the psychology most people never learn. Your focus does not improve when you eliminate distractions. It improves when you give your mind something better to pay attention to. The Aras always needs a target. If you don't give it a target, it will find one. And usually it finds worry, fear, or random noise. This is why people with no clear goals struggle the most with focus. Their mind floats, their attention wanders, their mental energy gets wasted on small, meaningless things. The Ras becomes confused, unfocused, untrained. But when you give the mind a clear target, everything begins to change. Let me give you an example from daily life. Have you ever noticed that when you want to buy a new car, say a blue one, you suddenly start seeing blue cars everywhere? They were always there, but your Aras wasn't filtering them in before. The moment something becomes personally meaningful, the Aras highlights it. The same happens with opportunities, with knowledge, with inspiration, with solutions, with progress. They were always around you. You just couldn't see them because your Aras wasn't tuned to detect them. This brings us to one of the deepest truths of the human mind. You see more of what you focus on. If you focus on fear, you see fear everywhere. If you focus on problems, you see more problems. If you focus on possibilities, you begin seeing opportunities that were invisible before. Focus is not just attention, it is perception. It shapes your reality. Maya decided to reprogram her auras every day. She practiced a simple ritual, one clear goal, one meaningful affirmation, one quiet moment of intention. Over time, her brain stopped reacting to every external signal and began responding to her internal direction. That is when real transformation happens, not when the world becomes quiet, but when your mind becomes selective. You must understand this. Your brain cannot focus on everything. It has to choose. And if you don't choose deliberately, your brain will choose for you, usually guided by stress, fear, and past memories. But you have the power to redirect it. There is one more element to this architecture: your identity. The Aras filters information based on who you believe you are. If you see yourself as scattered, your brain will highlight distractions. If you see yourself as undisciplined, your brain will highlight temptations. But if you begin to see yourself as someone capable of deep focus, your Aras will begin searching for evidence to match that belief. The brain is always trying to prove your identity right. This is why rewriting your identity is part of rewriting your focus. Your actions follow your identity. Your identity follows your beliefs, and your beliefs follow the thoughts you repeat daily. In other words, you train your auras with every thought you allow to stay. This is the moment where everything becomes clear. Focus is not something you look for outside. It is something you build inside. It is not an ability, it is a training, not a talent, but a system. In the next segment, we will begin building that system step by step. The habits, the internal dialogue, and the psychological frameworks that turn your mind from scattered to sharp, from overwhelmed to peaceful, from drifting to directed. If the earlier segments helped you understand why your mind drifts, then this segment will show you how to build the internal framework that brings your focus back. Slowly, gently, but powerfully. Because focus is not created in a moment, it is created in layers, and each layer supports the next. When people try to fix their focus, they usually start with the wrong layer. They try to change their actions. But the truth is, action is the final layer. Before action comes mindset, and before mindset comes emotional state. Real transformation begins inside, not outside. Imagine a man named Aaron. For years, he tried to become productive. He watched videos, read books, downloaded apps, made to-do lists, and filled notebooks with intentions. But nothing changed. Every night he went to bed disappointed, promising himself that tomorrow would finally be the day he became disciplined. But every tomorrow looked exactly like yesterday. One day he met an old friend who had become surprisingly successful, not because he was smarter, but because he was focused. Aaron asked him, "How did you change so fast?" His friend replied with a smile, "I didn't change fast, I changed deeply." And that one sentence held the secret Aaron had been missing all along. His friend explained, "People think focus is about doing more, but focus is about creating a life where doing less creates more impact. And to do that, you need to build three internal layers: clarity, intention, and alignment." Aaron paused. The words sounded simple, but he didn't fully understand. His friend continued, "Clarity is knowing what truly matters. Intention is reminding yourself why it matters. Alignment is living in a way where your actions match what matters." These three layers form the foundation of focus. Without them, no technique will work. No timer, no habit tracker, no routine, no productivity hack. Because when your internal world is misaligned, your external actions collapse. Let's begin with the first layer. Clarity. Your mind cannot focus on a blurry life. If you don't know what you want, your attention will go to whatever feels easiest. And the easiest thing is always distraction. The mind seeks direction the same way the body seeks balance. It cannot function without it. That's why you drift. Not because you lack discipline, but because you lack clarity. When the brain doesn't know what to prioritize, it prioritizes nothing. But clarity does not appear in a moment. It is built by asking the right questions. What truly matters to me? What kind of person do I want to become? What kind of life do I want to wake up to? Most people never ask these questions. They live reactively, not intentionally. They live in noise, not in direction. The second layer is intention. Once you know what matters, the mind must remember it. Your brain forgets easily. Goals, promises, dreams, priorities all fade unless reinforced. Intention is the act of reminding your mind what to focus on. It's like setting the compass every day so you don't lose direction. Without intention, even the clearest goals disappear under the weight of daily chaos. This is why simple rituals are powerful. A quiet morning moment where you write down one important task, a nightly reflection, a short reminder on your desk. These are not productivity tricks. They are psychological anchors. They pull your mind back to who you are becoming. They keep you aligned with your future instead of lost in your present. And then comes the final layer, alignment. This is where action lives. But alignment is not about pushing yourself. It's about designing your surroundings so that the right actions become natural. People fail not because they lack willpower, but because their environment pulls them in the opposite direction. If your room is chaotic, your mind becomes chaotic. If your phone is within reach, distraction becomes the default. If your workspace is the same place where you relax, your brain gets confused. Alignment means creating a life where focus becomes the easiest choice. The truth is, humans are creatures of context. The environment shapes behavior more than motivation ever can. A well-designed life requires fewer decisions, fewer temptations, fewer conflicts. It requires clarity of space and clarity of purpose. When your environment supports your identity, your focus flows naturally. Aaron slowly began applying these layers. He started with clarity. Every Sunday, he spent 10 minutes writing down the 3 things that mattered most in his life. Not 10, not 20, just 3. And every morning, he picked one to focus on. Then he practiced intention. He created a small ritual, one deep breath, one sentence of purpose, one reminder of direction. Finally, he aligned his environment. He created a clean desk with nothing but what he needed. He moved distractions out of sight. He separated work from rest. He created spaces with meaning. Bit by bit, his mind changed. Not through pressure, but through structure. Not through force, but through awareness. His focus returned, not as a sudden burst, but as a steady, calm presence. People around him noticed before he did. He no longer drifted. He no longer avoided tasks. His mind felt lighter, his days felt simpler, and his life felt meaningful. He realized something profound. Focus does not make life harder. Focus makes life peaceful. Because the opposite of focus is not distraction. The opposite of focus is chaos. A chaotic life cannot support a focused mind, and most chaos begins inside. When your mind has no clarity, no direction, no alignment, it becomes a storm. But when these layers are built, the storm turns into a river, calm, steady, flowing. In the next segment, we will explore one of the deepest psychological transformations, the shift from consumption to creation, from reacting to living, from scattering your mind to sharpening it. You will learn how to build a mind that produces clarity instead of confusion, progress instead of procrastination, and a future instead of noise. There comes a point in every person's life when they realize something powerful. The battle for focus is not a battle with the outside world, it is a battle with the self. It is not about removing distractions, it is about transforming the identity that keeps choosing them. In this segment, we explore that transformation. The moment you stop being a consumer of life and become a creator of it. Most people live in consumption mode. They consume information, consume entertainment, consume noise. Their mind becomes a container, filled but never expressed, heavy but never directed. The tragedy is that the more you consume, the less you create. And the less you create, the less meaningful your life feels. That emptiness pushes you back into consumption and the cycle continues. But focus comes from creation, purpose comes from creation, identity comes from creation. The mind becomes sharp when it is building, not when it is scrolling. You cannot become who you are meant to be by only consuming the world. You must also contribute to it. To understand this deeply, imagine a girl named Liana. She had dreams, big dreams, but every evening after work, she found herself scrolling for hours, watching other people live their dreams. Without noticing, she became passive. She was alive, but she was not living. She was breathing, but she wasn't moving. The world entertained her, but it did not fulfill her. One night she asked herself a simple question. When was the last time I created something? The answer frightened her. Months had passed. Some people go years. When consumption becomes the primary state of the mind, creation feels impossible. The brain becomes addicted to stimulation, and stimulation destroys attention the way noise destroys silence. This is why so many people feel unfocused, not because they lack discipline, but because they have trained their brain to expect constant stimulation. The belief that focus is hard is not true. The truth is simple. Your mind cannot sit in quiet because it has forgotten what quiet feels like. Liana realized that if she didn't change her identity, she would spend the rest of her life consuming other people's purpose instead of building her own. So she made a small shift, not a drastic one, not a dramatic one, a simple shift. Every day before consuming anything, she created something. One sentence, one idea, one sketch, one plan, one moment of reflection. It didn't matter what it was, as long as it came from her. This changed everything, because creation is energy, creation is clarity, creation is ownership, and when you create even a little, your brain begins to see you differently. This brings us to one of the deepest psychological truths. Your brain is always watching you. Every small action you take rewrites your identity. When you avoid tasks, your brain says, I avoid things. When you try something new, your brain says, I try. When you create, your brain says, I am a creator. Identity is not built by thinking. It is built by repetition. You become the person you repeatedly are. This is why small beginnings matter more than big goals. A massive plan does not change identity. A small action repeated consistently does. As Liana created a little each day, something else happened. Her mind began shifting from reactive to proactive. She no longer waited for motivation. She no longer needed long hours of discipline. She felt lighter because she was living with intention instead of habit. And slowly she returned to herself, her real self, not the version shaped by digital noise. But there is another layer to this transformation: emotional honesty. The reason many people stay stuck in consumption mode is because creation exposes them. When you create, you face yourself, you face your doubts, your imperfections, your fears. Consumption hides all of that. It gives comfort without confrontation. But growth requires confrontation. Most people are not afraid of hard work. They are afraid of being seen by others and by themselves. They fear judgment, failure, not being good enough. These fears keep them consuming instead of creating. And these same fears kill focus. Because fear scatters the mind, but honesty grounds it. When Liana confronted her fear, she realized it wasn't the world judging her, it was her own mind. She learned to sit with the discomfort that creation brings, and as she did, her focus deepened. Because nothing sharpens the mind like emotional courage, there is another shift that must happen. The transition from trying to focus to living in a way that makes focus natural. This is the identity shift that changes everything. When you see yourself as a focused person, focus becomes easier. When you see yourself as a creator, creation becomes automatic. When you see yourself as someone who values clarity, your choices align with clarity. Identity first, behavior second, results last. This is the opposite of how most people live. They chase results, they copy behaviors, they force discipline, but they never change identity. And without identity, habits collapse. But when your identity shifts, even small actions create massive change. This leads to the next profound truth. The most powerful way to improve focus is to fall in love with who you are becoming. When you care about your future self, you treat the present moment with respect. You stop wasting time. You stop scattering your energy. You stop filling your mind with noise because you want to protect the person you are becoming. The real transformation is not in your habits, it is in how you see yourself. A focused person acts differently from a distracted one. A creator acts differently from a consumer. A directed mind acts differently from a drifting one. You cannot build a sharp life with a blurry identity. In the next segment, we bring everything together. The psychology, the identity, the emotional layers, the habit formation, the internal architecture, all merging into a practical, deeply human blueprint for a focused life. A life where your attention becomes a tool, not a weakness. A life where you direct your mind instead of being directed by the world. There comes a moment in every journey of change when all the lessons, all the realizations, and all the quiet shifts inside the mind begin to merge into something new, something deeper, something stronger, something that finally feels like clarity. This final segment is that moment. The moment where your scattered thoughts align, your identity solidifies, and your focus transforms from something you chase into something you become. By now, you have seen the inner mechanics of your mind. You have seen how distractions aren't random, they are emotional escapes. How the brain's architecture doesn't work against you, it protects you. How your identity shapes your attention more than motivation ever can. How creation sharpens your mind while consumption dulls it. And how clarity, intention, and alignment build the foundation of a focused life. But there is one last truth, perhaps the most important of all. Your future self is built from the moments you choose focus over noise. Let me take you into one last story, a short one, but one that carries a lifetime of meaning. There was a man named Julian. For years, he lived reactively, answering messages, chasing deadlines, responding to the world instead of shaping it. He always felt busy but never felt in control. His dreams stayed on the edge of his life, never quite becoming real. One day, after a long week of frustration, he sat alone in his apartment, feeling overwhelmed and defeated. He looked around and saw his life scattered, half-read books, unfinished projects, open tabs, forgotten goals, and a mind full of things that never moved forward. He whispered to himself, "Why can't I focus? Why can't I start? Why can't I finish anything?" He felt small. He felt weak. He felt lost. But in that silence, something surprising happened. He suddenly remembered a sentence his mentor once told him. "Your mind is not the enemy. Your mind is waiting for you to lead." Those words stayed with him. Maybe he was not broken. Maybe he simply had not led himself yet. Maybe his focus wasn't missing. It was hidden beneath layers of noise, fear, and old habits. That night, he made a decision. Not a dramatic one, but a deliberate one. He decided that from the next morning, he would live differently. Not perfectly, not intensely, just differently. He would live by intention instead of habit. He would choose creation before consumption. He would give his attention to things that shaped him instead of things that drained him. The next morning he woke up and did one small thing, just one. He sat in silence for 60 seconds. Then he asked himself, what is the one thing today that will matter 5 years from now? That single question changed his day. And slowly it changed his life. Here is the truth that Julian discovered. A focused life is built one small intentional moment at a time. Not by changing everything, but by changing something. You do not need to fix your whole life today. You just need to make one focused decision. Because when you make one focused decision, the next one becomes easier. And when you repeat those decisions enough times, they become identity. And identity becomes destiny. The final transformation of focus comes from this deep understanding. Focus is not the ability to pay attention. Focus is the ability to ignore everything that doesn't matter. It is the strength to say no, the wisdom to choose the essential, the courage to let go of the unnecessary, the discipline to return to your path again and again, the emotional maturity to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it, the clarity to know that distraction is the most expensive habit in the world and attention is the most valuable resource you own. When you begin to live this way, everything changes. Your mind becomes quieter, your days become simpler, Your decisions become cleaner. Your goals become sharper. Your emotions become steadier. Your confidence becomes stronger. And your future becomes clearer. But the deepest change is something else. You begin to trust yourself again. You trust that you can start. You trust that you can continue. You trust that you can stay. You trust that you can finish. You trust that your dreams are not foolish. They are possible. And most of all, you trust that you are capable of becoming the person you once hoped you could be. Because the truth is, your greatest power is not intelligence, not talent, not luck. Your greatest power is your ability to direct your mind. When you master that, you master your life. As we reach the end of this journey, I want to leave you with one final thought, a thought that carries the essence of everything you've learned. Your mind becomes powerful the moment you stop living by default and start living by design. You are not here to drift. You are not here to survive. You are not here to be lost in noise. You are here to build. You are here to grow. You are here to create. You are here to focus. You are here to become the strongest, clearest, most intentional version of yourself. And every moment from now, yes, even this moment, is a chance to choose the path that leads you there. Your focus is your future. Your future is waiting. And now, for the first time in a long time, your mind is ready.